It's time for another spooky adventure with haunted history. So, welcome to another episode of Haunted History. This time we are going to deal with the haunted, sort of ghost stories, weird stories from Lebanon Valley. Our first location is the Buck Hotel in Jonestown, Pennsylvania. Now, this building was built back in, it started in 1802 and completed in 1804. And I believe it's considered to be the oldest continuously operating business in Lebanon County. Now, the story goes, when you think about Lebanon County, it's first been settled around 1723. There's going to be a lot of weird stories, ghostly stories. Well, in the Buck Hotel, there's a couple different ghostly stories. First one, in room number 7, there's a guy that they like to call the Ghost Charlie. Apparently, there was a guy that used to stay in the hotel all the time back in the 1800s, and he was a busybody. So whenever somebody would come up the stairs, he'd always crack the door open to see who it was. So they said one of the weird things that'll happen is when you go up those stairs, the door in room number 7 will always open and then close. Really bizarre. And I guess the new owners, they bought it in 2008. They had, his wife was painting in the room, and she had closed the door, or she'd went to go close the door because she had to paint behind the door where it was leaning, and when she went to go open it, the handle came right off, so she had to call her husband to come up and let her out of the room. The other really eerie thing, which the new owners said that they never had weird contact with this, but there's supposedly a little girl in white, around 4 or 5 years old, that goes around the place and through walls and that type of stuff. Now, they've never had any weird contact with her, but the one event that they had that they might have is she was painting in one of these rooms again, and when she got back, the thing was tipped over, and there was footprints of a 4 or 5-year-old, 5.5 footprints going out of the paint. Nobody was there. It was bizarre. But that's the Buck Hotel in Jonestown, Pennsylvania, one of Lebanon County's potentially most haunted buildings. So another haunted story that we have is actually on the campus of Lebanon Valley College at the Mary Green Hall dormitories. Supposedly there's a story, I'm not quite sure when it happened, if it was the 50s or 70s, but there was a girl that was moving in to the dormitories, and her little sister was sort of getting in the way, so they're sort of you got to get out of the way, so go over here. Well, she started playing with a ball, and apparently the ball went out into the street, and she got hit and was killed. Now, there's another version as well that sort of happened, that they said that she lost the ball on the train tracks and got hit by a train. But regardless of whatever it is, supposedly this little girl's ghost haunts the Mary Green Hall, and the students have said you have weird stuff happen, like lights being flipped on and off, doors opening and closing for no reason. And another one they say is pretty popular is if they have a radio playing, it'll all of a sudden be turned way up. It's more mischievous than anything, but it's just one of those odd stories from the Lebanon Valley, another one of these ghostly hauntings in the Mary Green Hall dormitory at Lebanon Valley College. Our next ghostly story and haunting comes from Babe's Grill House in Palmyra, Pennsylvania. Supposedly, Babe was the local Iceman for Lebanon County, and apparently at some point he lived a very, very profitable life, but a very unsatisfactory life. Now, there's two different stories. One, he either tried to commit suicide and shot himself in the face and failed. He lived a couple years and then passed away, and his wife lived a couple years after that and passed away and left the place to her daughter. There's another one that his wife is actually the one that shot him. So which one's true? But anyways, this daughter lived there for quite a while after her parents passed away, and there was rumors that she was the town witch. And there's all kinds of weird things that would be going on with the place. But they say that there are some really weird occurrences in there with doors opening and closing, opening and being left open in the front of the place. The guy that was the contractor to fix the place up and restore it said that he had, on a number of occasions, the front door was just wide open. And he checked with his dad, and his dad's like, no, I didn't open the front door. You'll have chilly sort of airs go through there. Also hear like disembodied voices from time to time in there. Really strange occurrences. What exactly is going on or not, who knows? But anyways, the lady wound up passing away a little over 10 years ago, and they didn't find her till a couple days later. So one of the things of note as well, the reason that his wife might have shot him, is apparently there were rumors that he delivered a lot more than ice to the local women of the communities. So she might have been slightly upset why she would have potentially shot him. But some of the interesting stuff, he was apparently in the kitchen with his chef, and the hood just all of a sudden fell down. They said there's like a 3-step process to doing that, and it just didn't make sense. And they... one of the weird experiences the waitresses will say is the disembodied voices, but they also have strange knocking at the restroom doors. And they've looked in the cameras because a person would open the door and look and there's nobody there. And they looked in the camera and there was nobody knocking, but clearly there was something knocking. So this is another one of those haunted locales here in Lebanon County, Lebanon Valley, Pennsylvania. Just odd and strange. Is it Babe? The Iceman? Who knows? Is it his wife? Is it the daughter? You never know. So this is a place, Lights Fort, that we've talked about quite a bit, and we've actually given this story in the history of Lights Fort, some of the unique hauntings that happened there. This is a place that is extraordinarily old, from before the French and Indian War, so it's not shocking that there's some weird occurrences around it. But one of the stories that goes around about it is there's this little Native American girl spirit that roams the property. Well, the story goes that this little Native American girl showed up at the fort and claiming she had no food and was lost and all these other things. So they took her in, but they thought there was a couple things strange about it, like that she couldn't create a fire, and they found a flint and stuff there to make a fire. And they started to realize that not everything was as it appeared to be. Here they realized there was some Native American encampments that were right nearby that were like waiting, because Lights Fort being a stone fort, the Native American tribes that warriors could not break in there. So apparently the plan was that this little girl was going to set fire to the fort or some of the barns to get them to open up the doors, and then her tribesmen were going to come in there and attack Lights Fort and take it. So John Light, and this is the sad part, he gave his daughter a large knife, and he told her that she needed to go out with this little girl to the barn and kill her. And she did that. And I guess that's where they learned some of these things. And the Native American warriors left because they heard about or saw that it happened, and they got out of there then. But they say that her spirit, the little girl, roams around the property from time to time. There's also another one from like somebody in Revolutionary War era clothing. Just a man wanders around from time to time. And when they were restoring Lights Fort, the men that were working on it said several times they got these really weird, eerie feelings and like these cold shivers going through them, and it just weirded them out. Like there was somebody standing behind them watching them and that type of stuff. And they turned around and didn't see anything, but it was just that weird feeling that you get sometimes that you're being watched. And this also is a building that has a lot of these underground passages that go all over Lebanon, and there's a lot of ghost stories that are involved with that as well. So this is one of those places, one of the more haunted places in Lebanon County. Also the oldest building in Lebanon County. So our last locale that we're going to visit here in the Lebanon Valley is the Lebanon Farmers Market, which stands on what was the basement and the foundations of the original Lebanon County Jail before it burnt down. Lebanon County Jail at this location is the place where the Blue-Eyed Six were taken and held in prison. 5 of them were hung in the courtyard. So a lot of people say they hear footsteps where there aren't anybody. Once again, a lot of the weird, eerie doors closing and things of that nature. But in particular, the 2 ghosts that seem to be there are the ghosts of Josiah Hummel and Frank Wise, who were 2 of the Blue-Eyed Six. They were 2 of the guys that were actually more involved in the insurance scheme and sort of setting the thing up. The guys, Charles Drews and Franklin Strickler, I believe was his name, the young guy, are the ones that actually committed the murder of Joseph Raber. But they say like some of the people that do the ghost stuff went in there and they've supposedly talked to the spirits of both Josiah Hummel and Frank Wise. Frank Wise, oddly, is the guy that had his skull stolen out in Greenpoint at the old UAB cemetery there, and they eventually got it returned because some guy was bragging about it at a tavern stupidly and got caught. And that was the one legend that Frank Wise is going around the Greenpoint Valley looking for a skull, even though it was returned. And Josiah Hummel had just, I believe, gotten married. It was nuts what these guys did. I mean, it was about as stupid as you could get, but apparently this is one of those sites, because the basement still is from the original structure and foundation, that have a lot of weird stuff that happens throughout the facility, and a lot of it's related to the Blue-Eyed Six. But it also makes sense because there's an old jail, and this is where they executed people by hanging. So you would have that kind of weird stuff happening. But this is the last place that we're going to visit, and I want to say thank you as always for coming along. Another adventure, another edition of Haunted History. Hope you enjoyed a couple of these different stories. I always find it intriguing, like the history of these buildings and some of the weird stuff that happens with them. Not that I'd be a fan of experiencing any of that. I want nothing to do with that, but still intriguing, the history of the county. So I hope you guys enjoyed that, and as always, we will see you all about town.